When a woman is kidnapped by mistake in broad daylight, a blind mafia boss realizes the error through her voice and scent, but instead of letting her go, he gives her one impossible challenge: 1 year to fall in love with him or die trying. If you're ready for a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button now and drop a comment telling me what you think will happen next. Let's dive in. The sun was merciless that afternoon, beating down on the empty industrial road where Jessica had made the mistake of taking a shortcut. She pressed her phone against her ear, listening to her best friend complain about wedding venues, completely unaware that her life was about to shatter into pieces she wouldn't recognize. "Girl, I'm telling you, the venue wants 10,000 just for..." The black van appeared out of nowhere. One moment Jessica was alone on the cracked pavement, the next she was surrounded by 3 men who moved with the efficiency of people who had done this 100 times before. No masks, no hesitation. Just hands that grabbed her arms with bruising force while another yanked the phone from her grip. "Wait, stop, what are you?" A sack dropped over her head, swallowing her scream into suffocating darkness. She heard her phone clatter to the ground, her friend's confused voice still calling her name before everything became the sound of her own panicked breathing and the slam of van doors. The vehicle moved. Jessica's heart hammered against her ribs so violently she thought it might crack through bone. She tried to speak, to beg, to ask why, but fear had locked her throat closed. Hands pushed her down against cold metal. The smell of oil and something chemical filled her nose through the fabric. Minutes stretched into eternity. The van made turns she couldn't track. When it finally stopped, rough hands dragged her out and across what felt like gravel, then smooth floor. A door opened with a heavy sound that spoke of wealth and solidity. Then silence. The sack was ripped from her head. Jessica blinked against sudden light, her vision adjusting to reveal a room that looked nothing like the warehouse or basement she'd expected. High ceilings, dark wood panels, expensive furniture that she had never seen before. And at the center of it all, sitting in a leather chair with the posture of someone who owned not just the room but everything in it, was a man. He was younger than she expected. Mid-30s maybe, with sharp features and black hair styled with casual precision. His suit was tailored perfectly, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes that caught the light from tall windows behind him. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. They were open, looking in her direction, but not seeing her. "Come closer," he said. His voice was smooth, controlled, with an accent that blended Korean and something else she couldn't place. Jessica's legs wouldn't move. One of the men who'd brought her gave her a small push. She stumbled forward 2 steps, then froze again. The man tilted his head slightly, like a predator catching a scent. He inhaled slowly, deliberately. Then his expression changed. Not dramatically. Just a subtle shift around his mouth that might have been disappointment or annoyance. "Your voice doesn't match," he said quietly. Jessica found her voice. "What?" He leaned back in his chair, one hand resting on the armrest with fingers that didn't tap or fidget. Everything about him was still, controlled. "When you spoke just now, your voice..." He paused, inhaling again. "Your perfume is wrong too. Too sweet." She wore something sharper. "And your breathing." His head tilted the other way. "You're terrified." She would have been angry. Jessica's mind spun trying to make sense of his words. What are you talking about?" "Who?" "You're not the woman I ordered," he said, and the way he said it made her blood turn cold. Not with malice. With simple fact. Like he'd ordered the wrong dish at a restaurant and was calmly correcting the error. One of the guards stepped forward. "Sir, she matches the description we were given. The location, the time, The man raised one finger. Just one. The guard stopped talking immediately. "Bring me her belongings." Someone placed Jessica's purse on a small table beside him. His fingers moved across it with surprising delicacy, finding the zipper, opening it, removing her wallet. He held it close to his face, running his thumb over the leather. "Cheap synthetic," he murmured. "Target, maybe. Walmart." He opened it, fingers finding the cards inside, touching each one. Student ID. Library card. A debit card from a bank that doesn't require minimum balance. He set the wallet down. The woman I wanted has money. Real money. You barely have enough for next month's rent. Jessica's fear crystallized into something else. How could you possibly know that? He smiled then. It wasn't cruel. Just knowing. Your shoes. I can hear the synthetic soles on my floor. Your clothes rustle wrong. Polyester blend, not silk. And your hands. He gestured vaguely in her direction. When you reached out to study yourself after they pushed you, your palm hit the wall. No rings. No bracelets. No watch. The woman I wanted wears jewelry worth more than your entire year's salary. You can't see, Jessica said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. No, he agreed. I can't. But I don't need to. You're not her. The room felt like it was shrinking. Jessica forced herself to speak. Then let me go. Please. This is a mistake. You said it yourself. I'm not whoever you think I am. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and Jessica instinctively stepped back. He didn't follow. Just stood there, hands loosely at his sides, face turned toward where she'd moved. You took 3 steps backward, he said. Your breathing just quickened. Heart rate elevated. You're calculating distances to the doors. He paused. There are 2 exits. The one behind you requires a code only my guards know. The one to your left leads to a hallway with 4 armed men. You won't make it 5 feet. Jessica felt tears burning behind her eyes. Please. I haven't seen your face. I don't know where I am. I won't tell anyone. I promise. Just let me go. You've seen my face, he corrected gently. And you already know too much. You know I'm blind. You know I make mistakes. You know my guards grabbed the wrong woman in broad daylight on an empty road. He moved then, not toward her, but to the window. His hand found the frame with practiced ease. The woman you were mistaken for is connected to the Chong family. They run half the underground trade in 3 countries. By now, they know someone tried to take her. They're looking for answers. But I'm not her. No. But you look enough like her that my men, who are very good at their jobs, couldn't tell the difference from a distance. Which means the Chong family will make the same mistake. He turned back toward her. If I let you go right now, you'll be dead before sunrise. They'll assume you're either her trying to escape or someone who knows something about the failed attempt. Either way, they'll torture you for information you don't have, and then they'll kill you. The room spun. Jessica grabbed the back of a nearby chair to keep from falling. This can't be happening. It is happening. And now we both have a problem. He moved back to his chair, sitting with the same controlled grace. I can't release you. And I can't kill someone who's innocent of everything except being in the wrong place. So, what happens to me? He was quiet for so long Jessica thought he might not answer. Then he said something that made no sense at all. I give you 1 year to fall in love with me. Jessica stared at him. What? 1 year. You'll stay here. Under my protection. You'll be safe from the Chong family and anyone else who might mistake you for someone you're not. And in that time, you'll have one task. His unseeing eyes seemed to look right through her. Make me believe you love me. Convince me it's real. Do that, and when the year ends, I'll let you go. Alive. With enough money to disappear and start over anywhere you want. And if I don't? Then I'll let you go anyway. But without protection. Without money. And you'll take your chances with everyone who's looking for the woman you resemble. Jessica's mind reeled. This is insane. You don't even know me. How am I supposed to make someone fall in love with me? How is that even possible? I didn't say you had to make me fall in love with you, he said. I said you have to fall in love with me. Whether I love you back is irrelevant. I'll know if you're faking. I can hear lies in the way people breathe. Feel deception in the shift of their heartbeat. You have 1 year to genuinely feel something real for me. That's the deal. That's impossible. You can't force feelings. No, he agreed. You can't. Which is why this will be interesting. He gestured to one of the guards. Take her to the east wing. 3rd floor. The blue room. Wait, Jessica started. You're not a prisoner, he said. You're a guest. The room has everything you need. Clothes will be provided. Food. Whatever you want within reason. But you cannot leave the property. For your own safety. He paused. My name is Kong Jae-min. You should probably know that, since we'll be spending considerable time together. Jessica, she whispered. Jessica Okonkwo. Jessica. He said her name like he was tasting it. Nigerian. My father was. My mother's Korean. Something shifted in his expression. Interest maybe. That explains the voice. The slight roughness in your consonants. Korean mother, but English primary language. How do you? I listen, he said simply. It's all I can do. The guards moved toward her. Jessica didn't resist this time. What was the point? As they led her from the room, she looked back once. Jaemin stood at the window again, one hand against the glass, face turned toward light he couldn't see. The door closed behind her. The blue room was exactly that. Blue walls. Blue bedding. Blue curtains that probably cost more than her car. The space was larger than her entire apartment, with a bathroom that had a tub big enough to swim in and a closet that already held clothes in exactly her size. Jessica sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself cry. 3 hours later, there was a knock on her door. She'd cried herself empty and was now just sitting there, staring at nothing, trying to process what her life had become in the span of an afternoon. Come in, she said, not caring who it was. A woman entered. Older, maybe 60, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled into a neat bun. She carried a tray with food that smelled better than anything Jessica had eaten in months. I'm Mrs. Chin, the woman said in accented English. I manage the household. Mr. Kang asked me to check on you. Did he? Mrs. Chin set the tray on a small table near the window. You should eat. You've had a shock. That's one way to put it. The older woman studied her with eyes that had probably seen everything. Jessica quickly said he wants me to fall in love with him. I know. That's crazy. Mrs. Chin smiled. Perhaps. Or perhaps he's lonelier than you realize. She opened the door. Eat. Rest. Tomorrow will be easier. She left before Jessica could ask what that meant. Jessica ate because her body demanded it, even if her mind was still spinning. The food was incredible. Some kind of stew with beef so tender it fell apart, vegetables she couldn't name, and rice that tasted nothing like the instant packets she usually bought. She showered, put on the silk pajamas someone had left in the bathroom, climbed into the bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud. And despite everything, despite the fear and confusion and absolute insanity of her situation, she fell asleep within minutes. Tomorrow, she told herself as consciousness faded. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to escape. How to convince someone to help her. How to get back to her real life. Tomorrow. But when morning came and sunlight streamed through those expensive blue curtains, Jessica would discover that nothing about Kong Jae-min's world was what she expected. And the man who'd kidnapped her by mistake was far more than just a blind mafia boss playing games with her life. He was something she hadn't prepared for. Something that would change everything. Morning came with a soft knock that pulled Jessica from dreams she couldn't remember. Mrs. Chin entered without waiting for permission, carrying another tray and wearing the same patient expression from the night before. Mr. Kang requests your presence at breakfast, she said, setting down what looked like fresh croissants and coffee that smelled like it cost more than Jessica's weekly grocery budget. And if I refuse? Then he'll eat alone and you'll miss the chance to ask him the 100 questions I can see burning behind your eyes. Mrs. Chin straightened. The clothes in your closet will fit. He's very particular about details. Jessica wanted to argue, to refuse out of principle, but curiosity won. She dressed in the simplest thing she could find, a white blouse and black pants that still felt too expensive against her skin, and followed Mrs. Chin through hallways that seemed designed to disorient. Every turn looked the same. Expensive art on walls. Thick carpet that swallowed sound. Windows that showed manicured gardens stretching toward walls too high to see over. The dining room was smaller than she expected. Intimate. Jaemin sat at one end of a table that could have seated 12, a plate of food in front of him that he wasn't touching. He'd changed suits. This one was navy blue, crisp white shirt underneath, no tie. He turned his head when she entered. You stopped 3 feet from the table, he said, uncertain whether to sit or wait for permission. Jessica's jaw tightened. How do you do that? Your weight shifts when you're unsure. The floor registers it. Subtle vibration. He gestured to the chair closest to him. Sit. Please. She sat, if only because standing felt like losing somehow. A staff member appeared from nowhere, placing a plate in front of her. Eggs prepared some fancy way. Bacon that looked like it came from pigs that had lived better lives than most people. Fresh fruit arranged like art. You're wondering why I wanted you here, Jamin said, lifting his coffee cup with the precision of someone who'd memorized distance and angle. Among other things. I don't eat alone well. I can't see the food. Can't tell if it's been tampered with by looking at it. I rely on smell, taste, the sounds of the kitchen staff preparing it. But mostly, I rely on having someone present whose fear of me is strong enough that they wouldn't dare allow anything poison near my plate. He set the cup down exactly where he'd picked it up from. You're afraid of me. That makes you trustworthy in this specific way. I could poison you myself. You could try. But you'd fail. I can smell chemical compounds that don't belong. And your breathing changes when you lie. You couldn't get poison near me without me knowing. Jessica took a bite of eggs just to have something to do. They melted on her tongue, flavored with herbs she couldn't identify. She hated that they were delicious. Hated that this surreal nightmare came with the best food she'd ever tasted. How long have you been blind? She asked. For years. 3 months. 17 days. The precision of it struck her. You count. Every single one. He cut his bacon with movements that spoke of practice. You're wondering what happened. Are you going to tell me? No. Not yet. Trust is earned, Jessica. Even in situations like this. He ate a piece of bacon, chewed thoughtfully. But I'll tell you this much, it wasn't an accident. Someone I trusted took my sight because they thought it would make me weak. They were wrong. Jessica watched him navigate his plate with minimal errors. Once his hand searched slightly for his coffee. Once he reached for salt and found pepper first, correcting without comment. But otherwise, he moved like someone who'd adapted completely to darkness. The year you mentioned, she said carefully. Does it start now? It started the moment you walked into my home. You have 364 days remaining. And what exactly do you expect me to do in those days? Jamin set down his fork. Whatever you would do naturally. I'm not asking you to perform or pretend. I'm simply asking you to exist here. To share space with me. To talk when you feel like talking. To be silent when you don't. The rest will happen or it won't. You really think someone can fall in love on command? I think proximity and time create opportunities for connection. Whether you choose to take those opportunities is entirely up to you. He paused. I also think you're curious about me. I can hear it in the way you ask questions. Curiosity is the beginning of everything else. Jessica wanted to deny it. But he was right. She was curious. Terrified, yes. Angry about being here, absolutely. But also desperately curious about this man who could hear lies in breathing and smell poison in food and somehow run an empire without seeing any of it. What do you do all day? She asked. Run my businesses. Manage territories. Negotiate with people who think my blindness makes me easy to manipulate. Prove them wrong. He smiled slightly. Kill people when necessary, though that's rarer than you might think. Dead men can't pay debts or honor agreements. You're telling me you're a criminal. I'm telling you I operate outside conventional law. There's a difference. I provide services people need. Protection. Resources. Solutions to problems the legal system can't or won't address. He tilted his head. Does that frighten you? Should it? That depends on your moral flexibility. Jessica pushed eggs around her plate. I don't have any moral flexibility. I'm a graduate student. I work part-time at a library. I've never even had a parking ticket. And yet here you sit, eating breakfast with a blind mafia boss, negotiating the terms of your emotional availability. His smile widened slightly. Life is strange that way. Before Jessica could respond, the door opened. A man entered, younger than Jamin, with nervous energy that filled the room. He stopped when he saw Jessica, his eyes widening slightly. Boss, I didn't know you had. Minho, Jamin said calmly. This is Jessica. She'll be staying with us for the foreseeable future. Jessica, this is Lee Minho. He handles my technology security. Minho bowed slightly, his eyes never leaving Jessica's face. She could see him trying to figure out who she was, what she meant to Jae-min. The Chung family is asking questions, Minho said carefully. About the incident yesterday. Let them ask. They're saying someone tried to grab their courier. They want to know who. And you'll tell them we have no information about any courier. Because we don't. Jaemin's voice remained level. The woman we intended to acquire was not their courier. She was their accountant's mistress who happened to know where bodies were buried. Literally. If they're asking about a courier, they're lying about who they think we targeted. Minho nodded slowly. Understood. And if they push, they won't. They're as confused as we are, which means someone fed all of us bad information. Jaemin stood. Find out who. Trace the source. I want to know by tonight. Yes, boss. Minho bowed again and left, shooting one more curious glance at Jessica before the door closed. Jessica stared at her plate. So the woman I look like isn't who you thought either. It appears not. Which makes this entire situation more complicated than I anticipated. Jaemin moved toward the door with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every step. Come. I want to show you something. Jessica followed because refusing seemed pointless. He led her through more hallways, up a staircase, down another corridor, until they reached a door he opened without hesitation. Inside was a library that stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling shelves. Thousands of books. Maybe tens of thousands. A ladder on rails to reach the highest shelves. Comfortable chairs positioned near windows. The smell of paper and leather and knowledge. You work in a library, Jaemin said. You told me that at breakfast. I thought you might like this. Jessica walked forward slowly, running her fingers along spines. Fiction. Nonfiction. Books in Korean, English, Japanese, languages she didn't recognize. First editions that probably cost more than her student loans. Modern bestsellers sitting next to ancient texts. I can't read them anymore, Jaemin said quietly. But I can't bring myself to get rid of them either. They're here. Waiting. In case. He stopped. You can use this room whenever you want. Read anything. All I ask is that you put them back where you found them. I have the entire library memorized by location. Jessica pulled out a book at random. A collection of Korean poetry. You memorized where every book is? Before I lost my sight, I spent hours here. I know this room better than anywhere else in this house. When everything went dark, I would come here and touch the spines. Remind myself what was where. It became meditation. He moved to one of the chairs, sitting with the ease of someone who knew exactly where it was. Read to me sometimes. If you want. I miss hearing words I can't see. Something in Jessica's chest twisted. This wasn't the cold Mafia boss from breakfast. This was something else. Something vulnerable. Why are you doing this? She asked. Giving you access to books? Being kind. Showing me this. You kidnapped me. You're holding me here against my will. You don't have to be nice about it. Jaemin was quiet for a long moment. I told you that you have a year to fall in love with me. That's only possible if you see me as someone worth loving. Cruelty doesn't inspire affection. It inspires fear. I have enough people who fear me. He turned his face toward where she stood. I want something different from you. Love. Or the genuine attempt at it. Yes. Jessica set the book down. And what do I get besides not being killed? What do you want? The question surprised her. She thought about it. Really thought. I want to finish my degree. I want to not worry about rent. I want to visit my mother in Seoul without calculating every dollar. I want to feel safe. Done. What? Your degree. I'll hire tutors. You'll finish your coursework here. Your rent. I'll pay it for the year so you don't lose your apartment. Your mother, will bring her here to visit when it's safe, or I'll send you with protection when the Chong situation is resolved. And safety. He gestured around. You're safer here than you've ever been in your life. I have 50 armed guards. Security systems that cost more than most houses. No one touches what's mine without permission. I'm not yours. Not yet. But you're under my protection, which amounts to the same thing in practical terms. He stood. I'm going to work now. You're free to explore. The grounds. The house. Anywhere except the West Wing. That's where I conduct business you shouldn't see. Mrs. Chin will answer questions. The guards know to let you pass anywhere else. He moved toward the door, stopped, turned back. There's a piano in the conservatory. Third door on the left from the main hall. Do you play? I used to. Not well. Play anyway. I like music. I can't make it myself, but I like being near it. He left before she could respond. Jessica stood alone in the library, surrounded by books and silence and the growing realization that Kang Jae-min was far more complex than a simple criminal who'd grabbed the wrong woman. The next 3 days followed a pattern. Breakfast together. Jae-min asking questions about her life, her studies, her thoughts on things that had nothing to do with kidnapping or deals or falling in love. Then he'd disappear into the West Wing and Jessica would explore. She found the piano. Played badly. Heard his footsteps stop outside the door more than once, though he never entered. She found the gardens. Acres of them. Flowers she'd never seen before. A koi pond with fish the size of her arm. She found the gym. The pool. The theater room with seats more comfortable than any movie theater. And everywhere she went, she saw evidence of money that didn't just talk but screamed. Original art worth millions. Furniture custom made. Technology she didn't understand. This wasn't wealth. This was empire. On the 4th day, something changed. She came down to breakfast to find a box on her chair. Navy blue. Tied with white ribbon. Jae-min was already seated, coffee in hand. Open it. Jessica untied the ribbon carefully. Inside was a phone. Not just any phone. The latest model. Sleek. Expensive. I can't accept this. You can and you will. Your old phone is gone. This one is secure. Encrypted. You can call your mother. Your friends. Anyone you want. But the calls are monitored for your safety. If you tell anyone where you are or who you're with, I'll know and the conversation will end. Otherwise, you're free to maintain your relationships. Jessica stared at the phone. It represented connection. Life outside these walls. Why? Because isolation breeds resentment, and resentment kills affection. I want you comfortable, not imprisoned. He sipped his coffee. Call your mother today. She's probably worried. Jessica's eyes burned. She hadn't thought about how her mother must feel. The police would have been called. Her friends would be frantic. Her absence would have created chaos in lives that didn't deserve it. What do I tell her? That you're safe. That you met someone. That you need time away to figure things out. Whatever feels natural without revealing specifics. He set down his cup. I had Minho create a cover story. You've taken a sudden internship. Prestigious. Requires confidentiality. Limited contact. It's documented. If anyone checks, they'll find evidence. You thought of everything. I always do. That night, Jessica called her mother. Heard her voice break with relief. Lied through her teeth about an amazing opportunity. Felt guilt eat at her insides while her mother praised her for finally catching a break. When she hung up, she cried for an hour. The next morning, there was another box. This one held a laptop. Top of the line. With every program she needed for her coursework already installed. For your degree, Jae-min said simply when she asked. The morning after that, she found her closet filled with new clothes. Not flashy. Not overtly expensive. But quality. Things that fit perfectly. Colors that suited her skin tone. Someone had studied her preferences and delivered exactly what she'd have chosen for herself if money wasn't a concern. This is too much, she told him at breakfast. It's practical. You can't wear the same 5 outfits for a year. These cost more than I make in 6 months. And I make that much before lunch. Money means different things to different people, Jessica. To me, it's a tool. I use it to solve problems. He buttered toast with careful precision. You're not a problem, but your comfort is part of the agreement. I told you that you'd want for nothing. I meant it. Every few days, something new appeared. A collection of her favorite books that she'd mentioned once in passing. A coffee maker that produced drinks better than any cafe. Art supplies because she'd commented on a painting. Skincare products from Korea that her mother used to save up to buy. He was trying to win her. Not with grand gestures, but with attention. With the kind of care that came from actually listening to what she said, what she liked, what made her comfortable. It was working, and that terrified her. "You're trying to buy my affection," she said one morning, 2 weeks into her captivity. "No. I'm removing obstacles to it. There's a difference." Jamin set down his fork. "If you were cold and I gave you a coat, would that be buying your affection or simply acknowledging reality? You need things. I can provide them. That's not manipulation. It's practicality. Everything with you is practical. Not everything." He was quiet for a moment. "Walk with me today. After breakfast. I want to show you something that isn't practical at all." She agreed, curiosity overcoming caution. After they ate, he led her outside, moving through the gardens with the confidence of someone who'd walked this path 1,000 times. His hand trailed along a hedge, using it as a guide, but his steps never faltered. They stopped at a greenhouse she hadn't noticed before. Inside, the air was humid and smelled like earth and growth. Plants everywhere, but not ornamental ones. Vegetables, herbs, fruit trees in pots. "I can't see them grow," Jamin said quietly, "but I can smell the changes. Taste the difference in herbs picked at different times. Feel the weight of tomatoes getting ripe." He reached out, his fingers finding a tomato plant unerringly, touching the fruit with gentle precision. "This is the one thing I do that has nothing to do with money or power or business. I grow things. Watch them live. It reminds me that not everything needs eyes to thrive." Jessica watched him move between plants, touching leaves, smelling soil, his face more peaceful than she'd ever seen it. "Who takes care of them when you're not here?" "I am. Every morning. Before breakfast. Before work. I come here and touch my plants and remind myself that control isn't the same as life." He turned toward her. "Do you garden?" "My mother did. Does. She has a little balcony garden in Seoul. Grows peppers and green onions. Then help me, if you want. Or just sit and be near growing things. There's peace here." They stayed for an hour. Jessica found herself pulling weeds without being asked, watering plants that looked thirsty, falling into a rhythm beside a blind man who tended vegetables like some people tended empires. When they left, her hands were dirty and her heart was confused. That night, she found a book on her nightstand. Korean poetry. The same one she'd looked at in the library that first day. A note was tucked inside in Braille she couldn't read, but when she opened to a random page, she found a translation written in the margin in careful handwriting that wasn't Jamin's. "He wanted you to have this," Mrs. Chen said from the doorway. "He asked me to mark his favorite poems, the ones about light and darkness. He thought you might understand them differently than he does." Jessica looked up. "Does he do this often? Give gifts?" "Never. In all my years working here, I've never seen him give personal gifts to anyone." Mrs. Chen smiled. "You're different. I'm his prisoner. You're his hope. There's a difference." The older woman left before Jessica could ask what that meant. Jessica read poetry until her eyes grew heavy, and when she finally slept, she dreamed of greenhouses and music and a man who saw more in darkness than most people saw in light. The morning of her 3rd week, Jessica woke to find an envelope under her door. Inside was a bank card with her name on it. At breakfast, she slid it across the table toward Jamin. "I can't accept this. It's not a gift. It's practical. You might need things I don't think of. There's $50,000 on this card. Is there?" "I told Minho to put 100. He smiled slightly. "The limit is $1 million. Spend what you need. You're insane. I'm thorough." He reached across the table, his hand finding hers with accuracy that no longer surprised her. His fingers were warm. "You're still afraid of me. I can feel your pulse jump when I touch you. But you're less afraid than you were. That's progress." Jessica should have pulled her hand away. She didn't. "This doesn't change what this is," she said quietly. "You're still holding me here. Against my will." "Am I?" His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "The doors aren't locked. The guards would let you walk out if you asked. You're here because leaving is more dangerous than staying. That's not imprisonment. That's sanctuary. Sanctuary I didn't choose. No, but sanctuary nonetheless." He released her hand. "I'm not trying to make you forget how this started. I'm trying to show you that how something starts doesn't dictate how it continues. His words stayed with her all day, echoing while she studied, while she practiced piano, while she walked gardens that felt less like a cage and more like an estate. That evening, she found him in the library, sitting in his chair, face turned toward windows showing sunset he couldn't see. "Read to me," he said without preamble. Jessica picked up the poetry book from where she'd left it, sat in the chair across from him. Read poems about love and loss and longing in a voice that shook slightly because this felt intimate in ways that had nothing to do with touch. When she finished, Jaemin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, again, "The one about the moon." So she read it again. And then again when he asked a third time. And somewhere between the second and third reading, Jessica realized she'd stopped counting days until freedom and started counting moments when his face looked peaceful. That realization should have terrified her. Instead, it just felt inevitable. 3 weeks became 4. 4 became 6. Jessica stopped marking time and started living it. Her mornings began in the greenhouse with Jaemin, their hands working soil together, his instructions given in that calm voice that never rose, never pushed. He taught her to identify herbs by smell, to feel when fruit was ready by weight, to understand that growth happened in silence. "Tomatoes don't announce when they're ripe," he said one morning, guiding her hand to a cluster of red fruit. "They just are. You have to pay attention to know." Jessica picked one, felt its give under gentle pressure. "Like people. Exactly like people." He turned his face toward her. "You're different than you were a month ago." "How would you know?" "You can't see me." "I don't need to." "Your breathing is steadier. Your footsteps don't hesitate anymore. You laugh sometimes when Mrs. Chen tells stories. You've stopped flinching when I enter a room." He paused. "You're adapting. Is that what you want?" "Me adapting? I want you comfortable enough to be yourself." Adaptation is just the first step. Their afternoons followed a rhythm she'd stopped fighting. Jaemin would work in the West Wing, handling business she heard but didn't see. Voices through doors. Phone calls in Korean and English and languages she didn't recognize. Sometimes shouting. Sometimes long silences that felt dangerous even from a distance. She spent those hours studying. The tutors he'd hired were exceptional, patient, pushing her further than her university professors ever had. Her thesis was taking shape faster than she'd imagined possible. She'd be done with her degree months ahead of schedule. "You're quiet today," Jaemin said at dinner one evening. They'd graduated from breakfast to sharing most meals, a shift that happened so gradually Jessica hadn't noticed until it was routine. "Just thinking about my thesis. My advisor would never believe the progress I've made." "What's it about?" "Cultural identity formation in second-generation immigrants. Specifically Korean African diaspora experiences." She pushed rice around her plate. "I'm using my own family as a case study. My mother's journey from Seoul to Lagos to marry my father. My experience growing up between cultures. And what have you concluded? That identity isn't something you find. It's something you build. Piece by piece. From everything you are and everything you're told you should be." She looked at him. "You can't see, but you've built an entire identity around what you can do instead of what you can't." "That's the same thing." Jaemin smiled. "I'm in your thesis? You're an interesting case study. Is that all I am?" Jessica felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I don't know what you are yet." "Good. Neither do I. We're figuring it out together." That night, she found a package outside her door. Inside were journals. Beautiful leather-bound notebooks with paper so smooth it felt like silk. A note in Mrs. Chen's handwriting said, "He thought you might want to document your research properly." Jessica ran her fingers over the leather and felt something crack inside her chest. The next morning, she played piano for 2 hours. Badly. Stumbling through pieces she half remembered from childhood lessons her mother had scraped together money to afford. She didn't hear Jaemin enter, didn't know he was there until she stopped and heard his breathing. "Don't stop," he said from somewhere behind her. "I'm terrible. You're learning. There's a difference." He moved closer. She felt him sit on the bench beside her, careful to leave space between them. "Play the last part again." She did. Fumbled. Hit wrong notes. His hand covered hers on the keys. "Here." This note. You keep missing it. He guided her finger to the right key, pressed down with her. The sound rang out clear and true. Jessica's breath caught. Not from the music. From his hand on hers. From the warmth of him beside her. From the way this felt like teaching and touching and something else entirely. Again, he said quietly. She played. He kept his hand over hers for 3 more notes, then pulled away. Better. Practice that section. I'll hear the difference tomorrow. He left before she could respond, and Jessica sat alone at the piano, staring at keys that still felt warm from his touch. That evening, Minho appeared at dinner. He looked nervous, his eyes darting between Jessica and Jaemin. Boss, we have the information you requested. Jaemin set down his fork. And? The woman we were supposed to take. The Chong accountant's mistress. She left the country 3 days before the attempt. Flew to Singapore. She's been there ever since. Silence filled the room. Someone knew, Jaemin said slowly. Someone knew we were planning the grab and fed us information about a woman who wasn't even in the country. They wanted us to take someone else. Why? Jessica asked before she could stop herself. Minho glanced at her, then at Jaemin, clearly unsure if he should answer. Jaemin nodded slightly. To create chaos, Minho said. To make both organizations think the other was making aggressive moves. Start a war between families. Did it work? Jessica's heart was pounding. No, because we grabbed you instead of whoever they meant us to grab. Wrong woman. Wrong everything. We disrupted someone else's plan without meaning to. Minho shifted his weight. But boss, there's more. The Chong family has been asking fewer questions lately. Like they've moved on. Or like they know something we don't. Jaemin was quiet for a long moment. Double the security on the property. I want surveillance on all known Chong locations. And find out who gave us that initial information. I want a name by the end of the week. Yes, boss. Minho bowed and left quickly. Jessica pushed her plate away, appetite gone. So I was supposed to be someone else. Someone specific. And, because your men grabbed me by mistake, I accidentally saved you from starting a war you didn't want. It appears so. That's insane. That's my life. Every day. One wrong move away from catastrophe. He turned his face toward her. Now you understand why I can't just let you go. Someone out there wanted chaos. Until we know who and why, you're safer here than anywhere else. Because they might try again. Because they might realize you were the mistake that saved me. And they might decide to correct that mistake. His voice was gentle despite the words. I meant what I said before. You're under my protection. No one touches what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning she wasn't ready to examine. Later that night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She wandered the halls, something she'd started doing when her mind wouldn't quiet. The house was different at night. Shadows moved differently. Sounds echoed strangely. She found herself outside the West Wing. The forbidden area. Where Jaemin conducted business she wasn't supposed to see. The door was cracked open. She knew she shouldn't. Knew it violated the one rule he'd set. But curiosity pulled her forward, and she peered through the gap. Jaemin sat at a large desk, papers spread in front of him that he couldn't read. Minho stood nearby, describing something in rapid Korean. Other men were present, all focused on documents and tablets. But what caught Jessica's attention was the way Jaemin commanded the room. His blindness didn't diminish him. If anything, it made him more intimidating. Men twice his size waited on his words. Deferred to his judgment. Watched him with respect that bordered on fear. The shipment arrives Tuesday, Minho was saying. But the port authority wants triple the usual payment. Then we don't use that port. Jaemin's voice was ice. We've paid enough to own that route. If they're getting greedy, we remind them what happens when they forget who protects their operations. How would you like us to remind them? Send Park. Tell him to be creative but not fatal. I want them scared, not dead. Jessica's stomach turned. This was the other side of the man who grew tomatoes and asked her to read poetry. This was the Mafia boss. The criminal. The person who ordered violence as casually as ordering coffee. She stepped back, but her foot caught on the carpet. The sound was small. Barely there. Jamin's head turned toward the door immediately. Jessica. Her blood froze. She didn't move. I know you're there. I can hear your breathing. It's faster than normal. You're scared. He paused. Come in. She almost ran. Almost fled back to her room and pretended she'd never been there. But something made her push the door open and step inside. Every man in the room turned to look at her. Minho's eyes widened. Another man's hand moved toward his jacket, where Jessica suspected a weapon was hidden. Leave us, Jamin said quietly. Boss, Minho started. Now. The room emptied in seconds. The door closed. Jessica stood alone with Jamin in a space that smelled like expensive whiskey and danger. I told you not to come here, he said. I know. I'm sorry. I couldn't sleep and I was walking and the door was open and you were curious about what I really do. What I really am. He stood, moved around the desk with that unsettling accuracy. What did you see? You. Giving orders. Talking about hurting people. Did that surprise you? No. But hearing it is different than knowing it. He stopped a few feet away. I've never lied about what I am, Jessica. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you. Ordered violence. Destroyed lives. Built an empire on fear and money and calculated cruelty when necessary. He paused. Does that change how you see me? Jessica thought about the question. Really thought. It makes you more complicated. Complicated. That's diplomatic. You grow vegetables and you hurt people. You listen to poetry and you run an organization that terrifies entire cities. You're blind, but you see more than most people ever will. You're kind to me and ruthless to everyone else. She wrapped her arms around herself. So yes, complicated. Jamin moved closer. She could smell his cologne now. Something subtle and expensive. Are you afraid of me again? A little. But not the way I was before. What's different? Before, I was afraid you'd hurt me. Now I'm afraid you'll hurt someone else, and I'll have to reconcile that with the person who teaches me about tomatoes. He smiled then. Actually smiled. You're remarkable. You know that? Most people would run. Would refuse to see past the monster to anything else. But you stand here trying to hold both truths at once. Maybe I'm just adapting. Like you said. Or maybe you're starting to understand that people aren't one thing. We're everything we've done and everything we might do and everything we choose not to do despite wanting to. He reached out, his hand finding her cheek with gentleness that contradicted everything she'd just witnessed. I could be cruel to you. Force this. Make demands. But I choose not to. That choice matters as much as the violence I choose when necessary. Jessica's breath hitched. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. She should step back. Should maintain distance. Should remember that this man kidnapped her and held her here and was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with affection. Instead, she stayed perfectly still. Go back to your room, he said softly. Sleep. Tomorrow we'll pretend you were never here. And if I can't pretend, then we'll deal with that truth too. He dropped his hand. But not tonight. Tonight you need to process what you saw. Decide if you can live with it. Jessica left without another word. Walked back to her room on legs that felt unsteady. Climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling until dawn painted the windows pink. When morning came, Jamin acted like nothing had happened. Breakfast was normal. Conversation was light. But something had shifted. Some invisible line had been crossed. Jessica knew too much now. Had seen too much. And instead of making her want to leave, it made her want to understand more. 2 days later, she asked him about it directly. They were in the greenhouse, harvesting peppers that had finally ripened. Jamin's hands moved expertly among the plants, finding fruit by touch, judging readiness by feel. What you do in the West Wing, Jessica said carefully. The violence. The intimidation. Why? Because the world I operate in doesn't respond to please and thank you. It responds to power. To consequences. To the certainty that crossing me costs more than it's worth. But you're not cruel for cruelty's sake. No, never that. I do what's necessary. Nothing more. He set a pepper in the basket between them. My father built this empire on fear alone. He enjoyed causing pain. Got pleasure from watching people suffer. When I took over, I changed the rules. Violence became a tool, not entertainment. Necessary, calculated, but never excessive. How did you take over? I killed him. Jessica's hands stilled on the plant she was examining. He was going to kill me first, Jae-min continued calmly. Thought I was getting too ambitious. Too popular with the men. Too much of a threat. So I beat him to it. Made it look like a rival family. Took control before anyone realized what happened. He turned toward her. Does that make you afraid? It makes me sad. Sad? That you had to kill your own father to survive. That you grew up in a world where that was necessary. She picked another pepper. My father died when I was 12. Cancer. I'd give anything to have him back. And you had to end yours to stay alive. That's heartbreaking. Jaemin was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than usual. No one has ever called my patricide heartbreaking before. Maybe no one's tried to see past what you did to why you did it. His hand found hers among the pepper plants. Squeezed gently. You're dangerous, Jessica Okonkwo. More dangerous than any rival family. How? Because you make me want things I stopped believing were possible. He didn't elaborate. Didn't need to. Jessica understood perfectly. That afternoon, a truck arrived. Jessica watched from the window as men unloaded crates into the West Wing. Whatever was in those crates was handled with extreme care. At dinner, she didn't ask. But Jaemin told her anyway. Medical supplies, he said. For a clinic in the Southern District. Free healthcare for people who can't afford it. We run 4 clinics. Staff them with real doctors. Provide medication at cost. Jessica stared at him. You're a philanthropist? I'm practical. Healthy communities are profitable communities. And people who receive help are less likely to work with rivals who offer nothing but exploitation. He cut his steak with precision. But also yes, some of it is simple decency. The world I operate in is brutal enough. I can at least make sure people don't die from preventable diseases. You're the most contradictory person I've ever met. I contain multitudes. Just like you. He smiled slightly. You're a scholar and a pianist and someone brave enough to question a mafia boss. You're afraid and curious and adapting to captivity by finding ways to thrive instead of just survive. We're both more than one thing. That night, Jessica wrote in one of the journals he'd given her. Tried to make sense of her feelings. Tried to understand how she could be attracted to someone who ordered violence and grew vegetables with equal care. She fell asleep with the pen still in her hand. The next week brought another shift. Jaemin started inviting her to the West Wing during certain meetings. Not the dangerous ones. But negotiations. Discussions. Moments where he needed someone to describe facial expressions, to read body language he couldn't see. The man across from me, he'd say quietly. What's his face doing? He's sweating. Nervous. His eyes keep darting to the door. Good. He should be nervous. Continue. Jessica became his eyes in ways that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with survival. She learned to read rooms, to catch tells, to understand the silent language of criminals negotiating power. And Jaemin learned to trust her judgment completely. You're getting good at this, he said after one particularly tense meeting. They were alone in his office, the other men dismissed. At what? Being complicit in crime? At seeing what matters. At cutting through performance to truth. He leaned back in his chair. You'd make an excellent interrogator. That's not the compliment you think it is. It's the highest compliment I can give. Truth is the most valuable commodity in my world. You find it effortlessly. Jessica sat in the chair across from him. Can I ask you something? Always. Why did you really give me that year deadline? Why not just say I had to stay until it was safe to leave? Jaemin was quiet. Then he said, because I'm tired of being alone. Tired of being surrounded by people who fear me or want something from me or see me as a resource to exploit. I wanted to know if it was possible for someone to see all of me and choose to stay anyway. And you think giving someone a year to fall in love with you is the way to find that? I think giving someone time and space and resources and showing them exactly who I am is the only honest way to find out if connection is possible. He turned his face toward her. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm trying to offer you enough safety and comfort that you can make a real choice. Love me or don't. But make that choice from a place of security, not desperation. That's actually kind of beautiful. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain. Jessica laughed. Actually laughed. And Jamin's face did something she'd never seen before. It softened completely. Smiled in a way that reached his unseeing eyes. I like that sound, he said quietly. What sound? You laughing in my presence. It means you're not performing. Not pretending. Just being. He stood, moved to the window, his hand finding the frame. I've been thinking about something. What? Your mother. You said you wanted to see her. I think we can arrange that. Jessica's heart jumped. Really? The Chong situation has cooled significantly. Minho believes whoever tried to manipulate us has moved on to other schemes. It's not completely safe, but it's safe enough. We can bring her here. Under protection. For a week maybe. Tears burned behind Jessica's eyes. You'd do that. I told you that you'd want for nothing. That includes family. He paused. Besides, I'd like to meet the woman who raised someone brave enough to argue with me about philosophy while helping me harvest peppers. Jessica crossed the room without thinking. Wrapped her arms around him from behind. Felt him stiffen in surprise, then relax. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. His hands covered hers where they rested against his chest. You're welcome. They stood like that for a long moment. Long enough that Jessica felt his heartbeat. Long enough to realize hers had matched its rhythm. When she pulled away, Jamin turned. His hand found her face again, that gesture becoming familiar. Jessica, he said quietly. Yes, we're past halfway. 6 months and 2 weeks since you arrived. How do you feel? She thought about the question. Really examined her heart. Confused. Comfortable. Conflicted. Curious. Grateful. Angry sometimes. Safe most of the time. And something else I'm not ready to name yet. That's honest. I appreciate honest. His thumb brushed her cheek. For what it's worth, I feel the same. Except for the safety part. I haven't felt safe since I lost my sight. Why not? Because blindness in my world is vulnerability. And vulnerability gets you killed. I've survived this long by being smarter, more ruthless, more willing to do what others won't. But every day is a calculation. Every interaction a risk. Except with me. Except with you. He dropped his hand. With you, I can just be. That's rarer than you know. Jessica's heart did something complicated in her chest. Something that felt like falling and flying simultaneously. I should go, she said, because staying felt dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with crime or kidnapping. Yes, you should. But he didn't move. Neither did she. Finally, Jessica forced herself to step back. To walk to the door. To leave before something happened that she couldn't take back. As she reached for the handle, Jamin spoke again. Jessica, one more thing. What? I'm glad it was you. That day, I'm glad my men made that mistake. Because you're exactly the right woman. Just not the one I thought I wanted. Jessica left without responding because there was nothing she could say to that wouldn't reveal too much. But as she walked back to her room, she realized something terrifying. She was falling in love with him. Not because of the year deadline. Not because of the gifts or the safety or the resources. But because of quiet mornings in greenhouses. Poetry read in darkening libraries. Trust built in moments between violence and vegetables. Because he was complicated and contradictory and saw her more clearly in blindness than anyone ever had with sight. She was falling in love with Kong Jae-min. And she had no idea what to do about it. If you're still watching, drop a comment and tell me what you think Jessica should do next. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that will keep you hooked. Jessica's mother arrived on a Tuesday morning in early autumn. Jessica watched from the window as guards escorted a small woman with graying hair and worried eyes through the front gates. Her heart cracked open seeing her, and she ran down the stairs faster than dignity allowed. Yama, she breathed, using the Korean word that felt right even though her mother had always encouraged English at home. Her mother's arms wrapped around her with the fierceness of someone who'd thought she might never hold her daughter again. They stood in the entrance hall, both crying, while Mrs. Chen watched with soft eyes and Jamin's guards maintained respectful distance. Let me look at you. her mother said in Korean, pulling back to study Jessica's face. You look different. Healthier. But your eyes are troubled. I'm fine, Yama. I promise. Her mother's gaze swept the mansion, taking in the obvious wealth, the guards, the atmosphere of controlled danger. This internship. What kind of work requires armed men? Before Jessica could answer, Jamin appeared at the top of the stairs. He descended with that careful confidence, one hand trailing the banister, dressed impeccably as always. Jessica's mother stiffened. Who is this? Yama, this is Kong Jamin. He's the one who arranged everything. Jamin stopped at the bottom of the stairs, bowed respectfully in the Korean way. Mrs. Okonkwo, it's an honor to meet you. Your daughter speaks of you often. Her mother's eyes narrowed. She looked between them, and Jessica saw the exact moment understanding dawned. You're not her employer. No, Jamin said calmly. I'm not. Then what are you? That's complicated. Jessica's mother switched to rapid Korean, her voice rising. My daughter disappears. Tells me she has some prestigious internship. But I come here and find armed guards and a man who looks at her the way my husband used to look at me. What is happening? Jamin responded in equally fluent Korean. Your daughter is safe. She has been since the day she arrived. Everything else is between her and me. But you have my word on my family name that no harm will come to her while she is under my protection. Protection from what? From people who would hurt her for resembling someone else. From a world she stumbled into by accident. From anything that might touch her without permission. Jessica's mother studied him for a long moment. Then she said in English, you're in love with her. Jamin didn't hesitate. Yes. Jessica's breath stopped. He'd never said it before. Never even implied it directly. And you? Her mother turned to Jessica. How do you feel? I don't know, Jessica whispered. I'm still figuring it out. Her mother sighed deeply. Show me where I'm staying. Then we need to talk. All of us. The week that followed was strange and wonderful. Jessica's mother had a gift for cutting through pretense to truth. She asked Jamin direct questions about his business, his intentions, his blindness, and he answered with more honesty than Jessica expected. You hurt people for a living, her mother said over dinner one evening. When necessary, yes. And my daughter helps you do this? She helps me understand situations I can't see. That's different from helping me hurt people. Is it? Her mother's gaze was sharp. If you use her information to make violent decisions, she's complicit. Jamin set down his fork. You're right. She is. I've made her complicit in things she never chose. That's one of many reasons I don't deserve her affection. Then why ask for it? Because loneliness makes people selfish. And I've been lonely longer than I care to admit. Jessica's mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised everyone. My husband was a gentleman. Kind. Hardworking. He sold textiles and provided well and never raised his voice. And I loved him completely. But sometimes I wondered what it would have been like to be with someone dangerous. Someone who operated outside the normal rules. She looked at Jamin. You're that person. And my daughter is drawn to you for the same reasons I wondered. But wondering and living are different things. What are you saying? Jessica asked. I'm saying that love isn't enough. Safety matters. Future matters. Can you build a life with a man who might die violently any day? Who brings danger just by existing? Can you raise children in this world? Her mother reached across the table, taking Jessica's hand. I'm not telling you what to choose. I'm telling you to think beyond feelings to practicalities. That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She wandered to the library, found Jamin already there, sitting in darkness he couldn't tell from light. Your mother is wise, he said without turning. You heard us talking? No. But I can guess what she said. The same things I've thought 100 times. He gestured to the chair beside him. Sit. Jessica sat. They existed in silence for a moment. I've been thinking about the year, Jamin said quietly. About the deadline. About what happens when it ends. What about it? I'm going to release you from it. The deal. The requirement. All of it. He turned his face toward her. You're free to go whenever you want. Today. Tomorrow. When your mother leaves. Whenever you feel safe enough. Jessica's heart lurched. Why? Because I realized I don't want love that comes from obligation or gratitude or fear. I want choice. Real choice. And you can't choose me genuinely while bound by a deadline. He smiled sadly. So I'm removing it. Stay if you want. Leave if you want. I'll protect you either way. I'll make sure you're safe. But I won't hold you to an artificial timeline anymore. What if I want to stay? Then stay because you want to. Not because you have to. Jessica felt tears slip down her cheeks. You're letting me go. I'm giving you freedom to choose. That's different. His hand found hers in the darkness. I've kept you here for 7 months. 7 months of slowly falling in love with everything you are. Your questions. Your courage. The way you laugh at Mrs. Chen's stories. How you've learned to read my moods by breathing. The trust you give despite everything I am. He squeezed her hand. But none of that means anything if you're not free to walk away. And if I walk away, what happens to you? I continue. Like I have for years. Blind. Alone. Running an empire in darkness. He released her hand. But Olive had 7 months of something beautiful. That's more than I expected when this started. Jessica stood abruptly. Paced to the window. Stared at gardens bathed in moonlight he couldn't see. Her heart was racing, her mind spinning with possibilities and fears and truths she'd been avoiding. I need to tell you something, she said without turning. I'm listening. That night, a few weeks ago, after you touched my face in your office, after I hugged you, she took a breath. I went back to my room and I realized I was falling in love with you. And it terrified me because it wasn't supposed to happen like this. You kidnapped me. You're a criminal. You order violence. You exist in a world I don't understand. But somehow, none of that mattered as much as the way you listen when I read poetry. The way you teach me about growing things. The way you see me without seeing me. Jamin stood slowly. Jessica, I'm not done. She turned to face him. My mother asked if I could build a life with you. If I could handle the danger. If I could raise children in your world. And I've been thinking about those questions all day. And the truth is, I don't know. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. If I'm brave enough. If I can reconcile the man who grows tomatoes with the man who breaks people when necessary. She crossed the room, stood in front of him, took his hands. But I know I want to try. I know that these 7 months have been the strangest, most complicated, most alive I've ever felt. I know that when you're not in a room, I notice. That when you smile, my heart does things I can't control. That I've memorized the sound of your footsteps and the way you smell like earth and expensive cologne. That I trust you with things I've never trusted anyone. Jamin's hands tightened on hers. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't need the rest of the year. I'm saying I choose this. I choose you. Not because I have to. Not because of some deadline or deal or obligation. But because I want to. She reached up, touched his face the way he'd touched hers so many times. I'm choosing the complicated, dangerous, beautiful disaster of loving Kong Jamin. His breath caught. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not. But you have me anyway. He pulled her close then, wrapped his arms around her, and Jessica felt like she'd finally come home to a place she didn't know she'd been searching for. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in a library full of books he couldn't read, while moonlight painted everything silver. Your mother is going to think this is a terrible idea, he said against her hair. Probably. But she also married a man from a completely different culture and moved across the world for love. She'll understand. I should probably ask her blessing. You should probably prepare for her to grill you for hours first. He laughed, and Jessica felt the vibration of it against her chest. This was real. This was happening. Against all logic and reason and common sense, she was choosing a blind mafia boss who'd kidnapped her by mistake. And somehow, it felt exactly right. The next morning, Jessica's mother took one look at them at breakfast and sighed deeply. So it's decided then. Is it that obvious? Jessica asked. You're holding hands under the table. He looks at you like you're the sun. Yes, it's obvious. Her mother sipped her tea. I want to be angry. Want to tell you this is foolish and dangerous and everything a mother fears for her daughter. But I also see how you look at him. Like your father used to look at me. Like love matters more than sense. I'm sorry, Yama. Don't be sorry for loving someone. Be smart about what comes next. She turned to Jaemin. You will protect her. With my life. You will treat her well. Better than I treat myself. And if she changes her mind, if she decides this is too much, you will let her go without consequence. I've already promised that. The answer is yes. Her mother nodded slowly. Then you have my blessing. Reluctant and worried, but you have it. Jessica hugged her mother tight, breathing in the familiar smell of home and love and acceptance despite fear. When her mother left 3 days later, she whispered in Jessica's ear, "Be happy. But also be careful. Love doesn't shield you from bullets." Jessica promised she would be both. The months that followed were different. Without the deadline hanging over them, Jessica and Jaemin settled into something that felt less like captivity and more like partnership. She continued her studies, finished her degree with honors, her thesis praised by advisors who had no idea she'd written it while living with a mafia boss. She continued attending meetings, being Jaemin's eyes, learning the intricate dance of his world. But now she did it by choice, and that changed everything. They grew closer in ways both small and significant. Mornings in the greenhouse became ritual. Evenings reading in the library became sacred. Conversations stretched late into nights where they talked about everything and nothing, building intimacy word by careful word. But they didn't cross certain lines. Jaemin was careful with her, respectful, maintaining boundaries even as Jessica sometimes wished he wouldn't. "Why won't you touch me?" she asked one evening, frustrated by his restraint. "Because once I start, I won't want to stop. And I need you to be certain, completely certain, that this is what you want. I've told you I choose this. Then prove it by being patient a little longer. Let us build this foundation completely before we build anything else on top of it." Jessica understood. And she loved him more for his caution. Then, 2 weeks later, everything changed. Jessica had been feeling off for days. Tired. Nauseous. Her body felt different in ways she couldn't quite name. She ignored it, attributing it to stress or a virus, until Mrs. Chen found her vomiting in the bathroom one morning. "How late are you?" the older woman asked quietly. Jessica's blood went cold. "What?" "Your cycle." "How late?" "I don't know. A week maybe. 2. I haven't been paying attention." Mrs. Chen's face was kind but serious. "I think you should take a test." The test was positive. Jessica stared at the 2 lines, her world tilting sideways. This was impossible. Except it wasn't. That night several months ago, after she'd seen him in the West Wing, after he'd touched her face and she'd felt something shift. They'd been careful, but careful wasn't foolproof. She was pregnant. With Kong Jaemin's child. Terror and wonder fought for dominance in her chest. This complicated everything. Changed everything. Made everything both more permanent and more fragile. She told him that evening, in the library where so much of their relationship had been built. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaking. Jaemin set down the book he'd been holding. "You're scared. I can hear it." "What's wrong?" "I'm pregnant." Silence filled the room. Stretched. Became almost unbearable. Then Jaemin stood, moved toward her with that careful precision, his hands finding her face, her shoulders, pulling her close. "Say that again," he whispered. "I'm pregnant. About 2 months, I think. From that night after you told me about your father. After we talked and everything felt different, and we stopped being careful because careful felt wrong in that moment." His hands trembled against her skin. "Are you sure?" 3 tests. All positive. He pulled back, his unseeing eyes searching her face the only way he knew how, with touch and sound and proximity. "How do you feel about it?" "Terrified. Amazed. Confused. Happy. All of it at once." She covered his hands with hers. "How do you feel?" "Like everything I've ever wanted just became real and fragile and impossible to protect all at the same time." He pulled her close again, one hand moving to rest against her still flat stomach. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," she confirmed. They stood like that for a long time, processing the magnitude of what this meant. A child. Their child. born into a world of danger and wealth and complications neither of them had fully anticipated. "We need to increase security," Jaemin said finally, his mind already working through logistics. "Anyone who knows about this pregnancy becomes a liability. The Chong family. Other rivals. They can't know until after the baby arrives safely. How do we hide a pregnancy? Carefully. You stay on the property. No outside visitors except trusted staff. We spread a different story to explain your continued presence here." His hand was still on her stomach, protective and gentle. "I'll keep you both safe. I promise." "I know you will." But safety in Jaemin's world was never guaranteed, and 3 months later, that truth became visceral. Jessica's pregnancy was progressing well. Her belly was growing, though still small enough to hide under loose clothing. She'd found an obstetrician Jaemin trusted completely, someone who made house calls and asked no questions about the armed guards or the fortress-like mansion. Everything seemed fine until the day Minho burst into breakfast, his face pale. "Boss, we have a problem." Jaemin set down his coffee. "What kind of problem?" "The Chong family knows. About Jessica. About the pregnancy. About everything." Jessica's blood turned to ice. "How?" "Someone inside. We're not sure who yet. But they know, and they're moving on the information." Minho's hands clenched into fists. "They've put out a contract. On both of you." Jaemin stood slowly, his face becoming the cold mask Jessica rarely saw anymore. "Lock down the property. No one in or out except essential personnel. Double the guard rotation. Triple security on all access points." He turned toward Jessica. "Pack a bag. Essentials only. We're moving you to the safe house." "No," Jessica said. "This isn't negotiable." "You're right. It's not. Because I'm not leaving you." She stood, moved to his side. "We face this together or not at all." "Jessica, they're not just targeting me anymore. They want you. Want our child. I can't protect you if you won't let me move you somewhere safe. And I can't live with myself if something happens to you because I wasn't here to be your eyes." She took his hand. "We're stronger together. You know that." He wanted to argue. She could see it in the tension of his jaw, the way his hand gripped hers. But he also knew she was right. "Fine. But you stay in the reinforced areas. You don't go anywhere without 2 guards minimum. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understand?" "Understood." The attack came 2 days later, swift and brutal. Jessica was in the library when she heard gunfire. Close. Too close. Jaemin appeared within seconds, guards flanking him. "They're inside," he said calmly. "Through the east entrance. Minho is handling it, but we need to move you to the panic room." More gunfire. Shouting. The sound of breaking glass. Jessica let Jaemin guide her, his hand firm on her arm, guards surrounding them. They moved through hallways she'd walked 100 times, now transformed into a war zone. They almost made it. 3 men appeared from a side corridor. Guns raised. Jessica recognized them from briefings. Chong enforcers. Dangerous. Desperate. Jaemin pushed her behind him, his own weapon drawn faster than she'd have thought possible for a blind man. "You're outgunned and outmatched. Leave now and you live." The lead enforcer laughed. "We're not here for you. We're here for her." Everything happened at once. Gunfire erupted. Jaemin fired toward sound, impossibly accurate. His guards returned fire. Jessica dropped to the floor like Jaemin had trained her to, hands protecting her stomach, while chaos exploded above her. When the shooting stopped, all 3 enforcers were down. Jaemin's guards were securing the area. And Jaemin was kneeling beside Jessica, hands running over her frantically, checking for injuries. "I'm fine," she gasped. "We're fine." Minho, Jaemin barked. Status. 14 hostiles total. All neutralized. The property is secure. Minho appeared, blood on his shirt, but moving fine. "But boss, this was just the first wave. They'll send more. Then we end this. Tonight. All of it." Jaemin stood, helping Jessica to her feet. "Get her to the panic room." No arguments this time. Jessica wanted to protest, but the look on his face stopped her. This was the other Jaemin. The Mafia boss. The killer. The man who did what was necessary to protect what was his. "Be careful," she whispered. Always. He touched her face one more time, then left to wage war against people who'd made the mistake of threatening his family. Jessica spent the next 6 hours in a reinforced room, listening to distant sounds of violence, praying to gods she wasn't sure she believed in that Jaemin would survive. When the door finally opened, it was Minho, looking exhausted but alive. It's over. The Chong family leadership is dead. Their operations are being absorbed by families friendly to us. Boss wants to see you. She found Jaemin in his office, blood on his shirt, exhaustion in every line of his body. But alive. Whole. Jessica ran to him, and he caught her, held her like she might disappear. It's done. You're safe. Our baby is safe. I made sure of it. At what cost? Whatever it took. I'd pay it 1,000 times over. He pulled back, his hands finding her face. I can't lose you. Either of you. You won't. We're here. We're staying. They held each other while outside. The sun rose on a new reality. One where Jessica and Jaemin were bound not just by choice or love, but by a child they'd created together. Their daughter was born 6 months later. Healthy. Perfect. With her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn determination. Jaemin held her for the first time, tears streaming down his face, unable to see her but feeling every perfect detail. Tell me what she looks like. She has your nose. My skin tone. Dark hair. She's beautiful. Like her mother. They named her Hannah. It meant one in Korean, first in Japanese. The first of many things. First child. First reason to leave the violence behind. First real hope either of them had held for a future different than their past. The wedding happened when Hannah was 3 months old. Small. Private. Just family and the few people they trusted with their lives. Jessica's mother cried the entire time. Mrs. Chen served as witness. Jaemin's guards stood respectfully at attention while their boss promised to love and protect a woman he'd kidnapped by mistake and fallen for completely. When it came time for the first dance, Jaemin held Jessica close while she guided him through steps he couldn't see, their daughter asleep in her grandmother's arms nearby. I once told you I'd give you a year to fall in love with me, he whispered against her hair. And I told you I chose you without needing it. You chose chaos and danger and a blind man who grows vegetables. I chose the most complicated, beautiful disaster I've ever known. She looked up at him, at the man who'd become everything despite impossible beginnings. And I'd choose you again every single day. Even knowing where it would lead? The violence, the fear, all of it. Especially knowing where it led. To this. To us. To Hannah. To a life I never imagined but can't imagine leaving. Jaemin smiled and Jessica saw peace in his face. Real peace. The kind that came from knowing love was choice and being chosen despite everything. Their story wasn't conventional. Wasn't safe. Wasn't anything anyone would have predicted. But it was theirs. Built from mistakes and violence and vegetables and poetry and trust formed in darkness by a man who couldn't see but understood everything that mattered. And as they danced in a mansion that had once been a prison and was now home, Jessica Okonkwo Kong realized that sometimes the wrong woman in the wrong place at the wrong time was actually exactly right. If this story kept you watching until the very end, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what you loved most. Your support means everything, and there are more incredible stories coming your way. Until next time, remember that sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places.